5 truly bizarre cases of self-proclaimed messiahs. Number 5. Arnold Potter. Arnold Potter, a self-declared messiah who referred to himself as Potter Christ, was a leader of a schismatic sect in the Latter-day Saint movement during the 1850s. On a mission to Australia in 1856, Potter claimed that he underwent a purifying, quickening change, whereby the Spirit of Jesus Christ had entered his body, causing him to become Potter Christ, Son of the Living God. The following year, Potter returned from Australia and moved to California, where he quickly began to gather followers. Over the next year, Potter, along with his family and followers, moved throughout the country from California to Missouri to Iowa, where he would roam the streets in a white robe, preaching that he was the chosen one. Every week, Potter Christ would lead his devoted group in prayer sessions, and in 1872, he declared that the time had come for his ascension to heaven. Potter rode a donkey to the edge of a cliff, and with his followers watching in awe, he claimed that he would jump off only to ascend into heaven, ultimately proving that he was indeed Christ, the chosen one. While saying so, Potter turned around and leaped from the cliff. To everyone's surprise, he did not ascend to heavens above. Instead, he plummeted to his death. His bewildered and faithful followers ended up collecting their Messiah's mangled body and burying it, along with their shattered dreams and any form of logic. Number 4. Laszlo Toth. Between 1498 and 1499, Michelangelo sculpted out of solid rock the Pietà, a life-size marble statue of the Virgin Mary cradling her dead son, Jesus, after he was removed from the cross. The magnificent work of art would remain unscathed in St. Peter's Basilica until May 21, 1972, when Australian student Laszlo Toth wielded a hammer and struck the statue more than 15 times while proclaiming, "I am Jesus Christ, risen from the dead." Toth was eventually subdued by bystanders, but not before breaking off Mary's nose, parts of her eyelid, and her left arm below the elbow. No charges were ever filed against Toth based on his apparent insanity, and he was committed to an Italian psychiatric hospital, where he would spend the next 2 years before being released and deported back to Australia. The reconstruction of the Pietà became one of the most controversial in art history, dividing many as to how to proceed with the delicate restoration of such a priceless masterpiece. Many art historians wanted the damaged statue to remain as it was as a sign of violent times, while others insisted it should be restored. Ultimately, the Vatican decided to restore the statue, leaving no traces of intervention visible to the naked eye. It took more than 5 months to identify all the pieces and fragments, and more than 10 months after the attack before the Pietà was fully restored, this time behind a panel of bulletproof glass, where it remains to this day in St. Peter's Basilica. Number 3. Ernest Norman. The Unarius Academy of Science was founded in 1954 by Ernest L. Norman, an electrical engineer who claimed to be the reincarnation Jesus but now went by the name of Raphael, a fallen angel from the heavens, preached to his followers how humans were reincarnated countless times over on this planet and others. Ernest's bizarre message was supported by his wife and fellow leader of the church, Rita, who claimed to be an archangel named Uriel who had telepathic abilities, which allowed her to communicate with residents of 33 other planets. Like Ernest, Rita also had a past life where she was once lived as Mary Magdalene. That makes complete sense, doesn't it? Apparently it did to the Academy's 150,000 members, who wholeheartedly believed that their leader Ernest was in fact the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and that they were the ones who had crucified him, only to be reunited in this life to make up for their past transgressions. If you are beginning to get a headache, take some aspirin because this tale is only going to get more bizarre. The Unarius Academy of Science, which was based out of Elkhagen, California, believed that movies such as Star Wars were in fact biopics of their own lives and that 33 spaceships were headed toward Earth, their destination being Jamal, California. Upon Ernest's death in 1971, Ruth took over as the leader of the church, causing the group's public profile to peak in the late 1970s and early 1980s. During this time, Ruth appeared on many talk shows, dressed in strange, brightly colored wigs and outfits, claiming how the spaceships would land on certain given dates. To everyone's surprise, no aliens ever visited. Her inaccurate predictions continued throughout the years until her death in 1993 at the age of 93. To date, no spaceships have ever touched down, causing the church to focus more on their spiritual energy as opposed to aliens visiting. Number 2. Krishnaventa. Francis Heinzwater Penkovic, who changed his name to Krishnaventa, founded the Wisdom, Faith, Love and Knowledge Fountain of the World cult in the late 1940s in Simi Valley, California. Prior to founding his church, he was a burglar, thief, and con artist. However, that supposedly all changed when he realized that he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ. He claimed that Christ's soul entered his body, having traveled from the planet Neophraites on a rocket ship whose passengers included Adam and Eve. Ventoff's physical presentation consisted of a monk's robe, long hair and beard, and no footwear. He claimed that there would be an armed race war in the streets of the United States, initiated by communist Russia. Venta claimed that at the end of the war, Armageddon would occur due to the use of nuclear weapons, but he and his 144,000 followers would be safe, taking refuge in a hidden location in the mountains. Ventoff's power would come to an end on December 10, 1958, after several former members of his cult accused him of abusing his power as well as alienating them from their wives and engaging in extramarital affairs. The men had 20 sticks of dynamite and encountered Venta in the administrative building of the group's communal settlement. They detonated their bomb, killing Venta and 9 other members of the cult. Ventoff's wife took over as leader of the group and continued to do so until the early 1980s. Number 1. Shoko Asahara. Shoko Asahara was born Chizuo Matsumoto on March 2, 1955, in Japan. A birth defect caused him to be blind in his left eye, leaving him only partial sight in his right. After being denied acceptance to medical school, Asahara began to study herbal medicines, and in 1981, he was convicted of practicing pharmacology without a license and was fined. Following this, Asahara focused his interests on religion as well as studying Chinese astrology and Taoism. By the late 1980s, Asahara had founded his own religious cult by the name of Om Shinrikyo. By 1990, the cult had amassed 10,000 followers, and Asahara had been calling himself the savior of the country, the Holy Pope, and Tokyo's Christ. Asahara began preaching to his followers how the world would soon come to an end following a series of disasters and instructed his members to gather firearms, develop biological weapons, and acquire supplies of sarin in order to prepare for doomsday. In March 1995, under the instructions of Asahara, 5 members of released the nerve gas in the Tokyo subway system, ultimately killing 13 and affecting thousands with neurological after effects. Dozens of members, including Asahara, were arrested. was officially shut down, and Asahara was sentenced to death in 2004.